And I'm just having a coffee and waking up, so the mind's not working as clearly as it normally does. So this may not be a good time to go into this highfalutin conceptual. And of course I've got the laughing Frankenstein with me in case I say something so incredibly stupid that even I need to laugh at it. Or in this case, I use my surrogate laugher because I love his laugh. And you know him well if you know me well. There were two things I was going to ask you. I guess I better get into the main thing though, because I can't remember the other thing. Control it, but I like to immerse myself in a thing, and it seems compulsive, and in fact it probably is compulsive. But I can switch it off and go on to something else. And I'm trying to do that so to take care of the house. And at 55, it's a lot harder. I'm telling you what, was up on a ladder yesterday chiseling brick out of because when I paint my house, I just don't scrape it and paint it once every 10 years. No, it's like once every 2 years, and I got to chisel brick out and put more brick in. It's a long story, but this is the hell house. And that's just the way it is, and I love it here at the Art Villa, regardless of the horribleness. I knew this was a bad time. I'm being compulsive. I just can't think straight. And there's a reason for that, probably, and I haven't figured. I've pretty talking about buying a house. Even if you buy an old house, and even if it's a crappy house, it's going to be better than any kind of new house you can buy, unless you have it specially built for you. And you know what you're doing, and you know about materials, and you search for better quality materials, okay? And it's going to cost a pile of money. So I bought a crappy old house, and I still like it, even though, you know, I just described the brick thing, okay, better than if I, you know, bought a new house, okay? So buy something that excites you. So back to the story. This is when I was my senior year of college. I came back, and I worked with this really tiny little local construction firm, okay? They built these little box houses, just the crappiest, cheapest houses that you can imagine. And I knew nothing, because my dad growing up, it was like as soon as I was old enough to push the lawnmower around, he like gave that job to me. And then he sat in the avocado green recliner, vinyl recliner, and he watched football and drank beers, and I don't blame him one bit for that. And we're in the kitchen doing something, and they got dark cabinets, dark stained cabinets, and the guy with the tool belt doing something, and the sink turns around and with a claw hammer in his tool belt, and he scrapes the shit out of the front of the cabinet. I looked at him like, oh, what are you going to do about that? And he's like, ha ha ha. And he takes a pencil out of his pocket, and he rubs some pencil graphite into it and with his thumb and rubs it in, and he says, this is called pencil staining. So then we were working on something, I don't even remember what it was, but I just remember what happened. Something didn't fit, and I went, oh, how are you going to make that fit? And he takes his hammer out that he used to scrape the kitchen cabinet, and he starts smashing it till it fits, and he looks at me and laughs and says, hammer planing. Oh man, then we were up in the attic doing something. And the side of the house at the peak of the roof was flapping in the wind. So to fix that, they used a clothes hanger that they unraveled and wrapped around the joist and the 2x4 that was, so it wouldn't flap anymore. But the homeowner finally got angry when we put a block foundation in for a porch. They were going to put a slab on it. And we put it in, and then the next day we had to go back because it already cracked. Anyway. I had to stop myself because I reviewed the video. Because if there's one thing I like to do is watch myself over and over and over again. You know what I'm saying? I'm coming home. Maybe I have. I don't know. There's like 700 videos. I probably have. I got to run out of stories at some point. I'm walking home from school, like from the 3rd grade, with my friend, okay, who lived on the way home. You know, I was like down the street a little bit farther, and we walk home for lunch, okay? In elementary school, they let you out. Back in the good old days, they'd let you home for lunch, and we would go home for lunch and run back to school. So we're going home, and we always cut through yards. You know, I had no sense of boundaries. Just you went the shortest route to go wherever you needed to go. So we're going through a yard, and here's this guy laying on the ground, and the lawnmower's running, and there's a little bit of blood on his leg, you know. And we just went, oh look, there's a guy laying on the ground. And then we go to his mother's house. We say, hey, I guess we were just impressed enough by this that we were like, hey, there's a guy laying on the ground, and next door, a lawnmower running. And she goes over and comes back like, oh, and he was dead. He picked up a piece of clothes hanger, and it shot out a piece of wire. It shot it through his leg, and it evidently cut an artery or did something. Anyway, he died, and he was dead. I lost my train of thought. Let's do the laughy thing again. Sometimes it's good just to insert a pause. Richard Heyman album, Voodoo. This was his best album. I don't know if I have all of them, but out of the ones that I do have, and some of them have great covers, and the music just isn't. I can hardly believe my luck of Tennessee guitars. There's a cover of Star Wars on this. Hello Dolly, Ode to Billy Joe. Star Wars. Can't wait. Ooh, and I just noticed the cover artist, Gail Allen, is credited on the back cover. She probably committed suicide at some point shortly after. Don't put my name on it, whatever you do. I have a career. I'm trying to build myself into a real artist. And they ruined it by putting... I'm sorry, Gail. I'm sorry that you... But anyway, cut all that out. That was just a mean thing to say. When we start out, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a Gibson greeting card floating around out there with a pig on it, if I remember correctly, that I drew when I was the greeting card artist. That's the most I knew at the time it was a horrible piece of dreck. And boy, if that's there, and my name's on it, by the way. So search, go to your drawer where you keep your cards and see if you can find a birthday card, I think it was, with a pig on it. Because it's the worst piece of crap ever to be. Okay. And then we had lunch and went back to school. See, as a kid, you're not affected by. What are you affected by as a kid? I think you're affected by other kids who threaten to kill you. Now, and the last record I've been wanting for a long time, and it's this. I got to play the tiki drummer. Anyway, I had to pay a little bit of money for this because copies are about $30, and I paid almost that much. But you can't hardly on eBay get one for less than $30. And you can also get them on CD, but I just want the vinyl, the original vinyl. The wife and I were watching Oddities. I think it's a show, it's a half-hour reality show called Oddities. Apparently, there's a shop in New York. It's been there for 20 years, some years, I don't know. These people have been selling rarities and oddities, rare oddities. And it's not like your typical antique store or even like an atomic age store. It's like shrunken heads, you know, like they even bought a shrunken head. And that was an interesting show because they had to go to a lawyer to find out if it was legal for them to buy this head. I'll get back to that. So, of course, the people, they must have lots of customers, but of course, only the most flamboyant customers do they, film for the show. So they were running a whole series of them yesterday, and the shows. And one of these shows, this young woman comes in, maybe in her 20s, and she looks like a librarian. She's a mousy-looking girl with a kind of a high, squeaky voice. Glasses, just like you would, your stereotype librarian clerk type person. And she's looking for something. I can't how she framed it initially, but something kind of morbid or gross or something, And well, what do? They always try to find out a little bit about the person so you can relate to them, rather than just what they're going to buy. Well, I'm an artist, and I work in urine and poop. And of course the wife is watching this, says, ew. And I'm like, ew, me too. I'm like, oh no. This could be, I just, how could this not be made up? And it's like, well, then she goes on to explain with the straight face how she put urine in baggies and hung them in front of a window, apparently in her apartment. And it was all at once repulsive and beautiful. And the woman that runs the store, see, this is what I love about the show, is that that because of what they sell, they have to, it's like an exercise every day for them to be, how open-minded can they be when people walk in? And not to pass judgment on them. I have to hand it. It's almost like a part of the business. Do they go home at night and just go, oh my God, a baggie's filled with urine. All I could do to keep a straight face. But they do. So the woman's like, yeah, baggies of urine and windows. It'd be kind of like stained glass. It'd be kind of beautiful, like stained glass, right? And the girl's like, yeah. But if you think that's bad, then she goes, well, then I work with poop. I do paintings of poop. Just. And they're like, yeah, poop, paintings and poop, So I'm just like, got this. What if somebody comes in and says, I went to my next door neighbor's house and I hacked him up and I rearranged his body into a sculpture. And they're like, yeah, you killed your neighbor and rearranged his body. That's so awesome. It's a new art form. But I don't think it's legal. They draw their, back to the shrunken heads. They were like concerned with it because they didn't want to do anything illegal. But they'd be like, yeah, you killed your neighbor. But while I watched the show, the whole point of the story is like, the thoughts run through my mind, and I just wondered if they did. If you watch the show, does these unusual things? I'm sure we all have a few things we find curious, and how these people. See, here's the thing. These people pay. The people they choose. Many of them are artists of some type. And they come in, they're paying big money for stuff that has very limited market, other than to themselves. Folks like themselves are very, very few and far between. Where do they come up? Like this, the girl with the poop. She buys this giant jar. It was about like 18 inches high by 5 or 6 inches around, full of rotten teeth. Apparently was part of some kind of dental school, where they collected them so they could show students rotten teeth. Like, this is what they look like, rotten. And she cradles it like a baby. She's very happy. She's going to make art out of rotten teeth. I kind of like the jar of rotten teeth. I hated to see it be broken up for artwork.